on an average daily balance of $143,010,279.92 for an effective rate of return on our investments of 4.4%. This is inclusive of all amortization, realized gains and losses on sales and maturities. And of the $534,000 that we earned, $292,849.89 relates to general fund and budget stabilization, while the general fund share is $287,000, budget stabilization roughly $5,800. For the year, our portfolio has earned $4,286,113.89 on an average daily balance of $164,641,204.33. So for the year, we've got an effective rate of return of 4.48%. Just like monthly reporting, this is inclusive of all amortization, realized premiums, realized gains and losses on sales maturities. And of the 4.28 million, $2,624,174.25 relates to the general fund. $39,518 relates to budget stabilization. So if we assume the rest of the year follows a similar trend of January through July, we're on track to earn $7.35 million during 2025. As for our inflation update, so inflation over the last 12 months for July was 2.7%. This is steady at June's number of 2.7%, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, but our 4.4% rate of return is higher than inflation. We experienced a 1.7% net gain in purchasing power during July. July's inflation was spread across the following categories. Food is up 2.9%. Energy commodities or fuel is down 9%. Energy services or utilities is up 7.2%, of which electricity is up 5.8%, gas is up 13.8%, shelter is up 3.7%, transportation services up 3.5%, medical services up 4.3%, and other commodities, so vehicles, apparel, medical commodities, are up 1.2%. Now, before I go into questions, I want to note that the info we're receiving from the Bureau of Labor Statistics may be less trustworthy going forward. On August 1st, President Trump fired Dr. Erica McIntarfer, who's the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It was on the claim that a weaker than expected jobs report for July was manipulated for political purposes. This was done without citing any evidence, and past commissioners of the Bureau, appointed by both Republican and Democratic administrators, have attested that partisan activity is not grounded in reality in this space. Dr. McIntarfer was approved by the Senate with an 86-8 margin, including by now Vice President J.D. Vance and now Secretary of State Marco Rubio. She had worked for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Census Bureau, Treasury Department, and the White House Council of Economic Advisors in a career spanning 20 years of civil service. Now, her firing's concerning for us because the U.S. has traditionally been the gold standard for reporting economic data, because no matter the results, businesses, economists, other users could count on a lack of political interference in what's published. As for the job numbers, the U.S. is the world's largest economy. The Bureau's initial monthly job estimates are often based on incomplete data. These data sets are revised twice following an initial jobs report, and then again each February. So the Bureau's economists also use a formula to smooth out jobs numbers for seasonal variations, and that can make revisions seem larger when they fall outside expectations. To use just the education sector as an example, if not for that formula, each June's job report would look like the economy's in free fall because teachers are not teaching kids in our public schools. So I bring this up not for the sake of political fire alarms or to do any of that, because I'm not an elected official. I bring this up because we may end up blindsided by changing economic conditions that aren't reflected in the data we get from Washington. Treasury is not staffed by a team of economists, though if the board wants to give that, I'd be happy to add them to our office. but we rely on the Bureau's inflation data to see how our portfolio stacks up relative to changing prices and to forecast if or when there might be rate cuts around the corner. We're looking at September for a possible rate cut, but if we can't trust the inflation data, we're left kind of holding the bag when our CDs come up for maturity or we've got other investment options that we might be able to put some money into. So just wanted to keep that in mind. It's our sincere hope that the Bureau's civil service ethos is unchanged. The next commissioner won't be bending to any sort of political pressures, though we are a little less confident right now than we were in June. As always, Treasury will continue to inform the board. We'll monitor market conditions. We'll keep you posted of any changes that we see. But I'd be happy to take questions on this, on our portfolio, and run from there.
Thank you, Chief Deputy, and appreciate the education on how the Bureau of Labor Statistics quantifies the health of the employment sector. We appreciate the education for members of the community and for this board. So I'll open to questions. Have some from, I think, Vice Chair, and we'll go Vice Chair Pro Tem.
Mine is really quick. You mentioned and I think I talked to, maybe it was you or maybe it was Thomas about it, but you mentioned the investment income for the general fund and then the budget stabilization fund separately. Doesn't the investment, the interest from the budget stabilization fund go back into the general fund because the general fund is set at a certain dollar amount?
It does. When I'm pulling it together, I have to separate out the different funds. Most months it's included in here and just not picked up with questions. But yeah, it all goes into the same place. It's all revenue that goes back into the county's general fund.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the very clarified report that you provide for us. And so if they make a change in the interest rate, how much of an effect would that have on our portfolio?
It depends on the size. It's not entirely clear whether they're looking for a quarter or maybe a 0.5% in September. It will have the biggest impact on our most liquid funds, our money markets, some of our pooled investments, but we have been trying to lock in better rates, especially as maturities come up. We've been trying to gauge with, here's a 12-month, a 13-month kind of CD option, some of our longer pieces in our pooled funds, because we knew that rate cuts would come eventually, but it wasn't clear when. This may be the first cut. If I had to guess, based on the job numbers and the inflation info that we've been provided, and assuming that all the data is trustworthy, I'm anticipating a 0.25% cut in September. Assuming that there's not significant job fall off, or if inflation dips really far, then yeah, we could see maybe a 0.5% rate cut, but it's hard to project that. If I could project the dollars with that, I'd be on Wall Street, but I'll keep my eyes out on it. I'll keep you all posted. I can revise the way I've been doing this for projections in the future. All of the numbers I've been providing have been, if we assume the rest of the year follows what's already happened, this is what will be the case. I can break that out if we say, all right, here's rate cuts, do 75% of it is based on past projections, and then this, we can weight it. However the board would like to see it, just let me know. I can present options.
Thank you. But if it were a 0.25%, would that have a significant impact or not? And I guess is my question.
Yes and no. So no, in that it's not going to undo all of the gains that we've got so far, right? It will have an impact because now we're getting property tax collections in, and this is where our margin investment strategy really brings in money for the county. Those dollars go into our most liquid options, our pooled funds, our money market funds, because we need to then pull out funds for we're paying the state for state education taxes and the like, and we're spreading money out to different millages. So yes, in that it will reduce the amount that we get from our marginal investment strategy. No, for all of the locked in investments that we already have, those will not be impacted.
Vice Chair.
And I just brought his question, Vice Chair Pro Tem's question brought me up to, and I've been looking through these the last few months, and I think you guys have been doing a really good job of insulating yourself from potential rate cuts by locking into a lot of long-term things. You look at the short term, it's about 35–40% of their total investment is in short term. So a quarter point on that, which would be 10% of half, it would probably affect it $50,000 or $60,000 total on a quarter point with this current strategy. So it's not going to be big. It's when you get multiple rate cuts, one after the other, that's when we have more of a short-term effect. And I think your office has been doing a good job of insulating yourself in anticipation of future cuts. So I appreciate that.
And seeing nothing further, thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 6 for fiscal year 26 budget discussion. Go through a review of the recommended revenue forecasting, carryover expenditures. So we're going to be led through a presentation, and like the administration have the opportunity to go through their materials, and then we'll pose questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, Administrator.
Thank you, Chair. Waiting on administration to pull up the PowerPoint, but I know you all have it in front of you. We also republished the packet, so the public also has access to the presentation as well. So I'll just give that a second so we can get that pulled up on the screen, and then we'll get started. All right. Thank you, Dina and Monique. So Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, Commissioners, we wanted to kick off and continue the budget process by presenting some revenue forecasting and carryover expenditures as a precursor to delivering the Administrator's recommended budget sometime here within the month of September. So we're going to go through tonight, preview some of these items, and specifically highlight revenue projections, expenditure outlook, fund balance management, and then alignment with board priorities. So again, this is the outline. We'll focus on 4 key areas, which are expenditures, revenues, fund balance management, and finally the board budget priorities. And then together, we believe that these will help guide our fiscal strategy. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. So right now, this slide is a review of expenditures, mainly focusing on, for this slide, focusing on our personnel-related costs. So as you see that personnel-related costs remain the largest driver of our general fund. For 2025, salaries will total approximately $52.7 million. And then 2026, we're projecting $55.1 million, reflecting a 3% wage scale increase with eligible step increases, which is an increase of about $2.4 million. I also want to point out that our fringe rate was reduced from 40%, or reduced to 40% rather, from 42.9% in 2025. So that took effect this year. While this has a positive near term budget impact, we must recognize that ongoing obligations may necessitate future adjustments. So this could mean an eventual increase in the rate or reconsideration of the structure of our medical and non-medical benefits that we offer to employees. But our goal overall is to ensure that long-term sustainability and vitality of these funds remains successful. Next slide, please. So this slide here just gives a very brief overview of expenditures related to overtime. So we continue to budget overtime intentionally. For 2026, that relates to or equates to about $1.4 million, including both salary and benefits. So that's inclusive of the fringes with that. Next slide, please. This chart here rather shows a gap between overall overtime budgets and the actuals. So historically, actual costs have exceeded what was budgeted, and our 2026 figures better align with those realities to minimize surprises. What we will also discuss eventually throughout the budget process, and we can discuss it tonight, is that you'll see year to date in 2025 that we're projected to exceed that budget recommendation, and you'll notice that for 2026 it's also budgeted a little lower. What usually happens is that within the salary pool, due to the vacancies that Vice Chair had alluded to, they usually provide that cushion to address additional overtime needs within departments. And the main driver of departments that have implications on the overtime budget is the sheriff's office. So in 2023, our budget was 1.8 million. The sheriff's office was 1.4 million dollars of the overtime budget. The rest of the county was 400,000. 2024 was a 2.2 million dollar overtime actual. Sheriff's office was 1.8 million. The rest of the county was 400,000. 2025 year to date, we're already at 1.5 million. 1.2 million sheriff's office. The entire rest of the county is 288,000. So what happens is within that, right, there are a slew of sheriff's office positions that are vacant, where that funding then is used to, or is rather reallocated to support the overtime budgets for that office. Next slide, please. So yeah, I'll pause. A good stop here to see if there's any questions from the board on anything that I've discussed so far with expenditures.
Seeing none.
Very good. All right. Revenues. Next slide, please. So we'll talk about property taxes. So on the property tax side, we are showing that obviously this is really the main source of income for the county, with exception of millages and such. And as you see, this number really I say it mirrors our personnel wages. So all of the property taxes essentially support all of the personnel for the county who deliver services to county residents. We're projecting a 4.5% increase, which is slightly below equalization's forecast to promote stability within the county. So that number for 2026 equates to 56.4 million. Next slide, please. This is just that schedule that we presented last year, just to kind of remind the board and the public of how the county receives its funding. So it's very sporadic. So we just have that out there as just a kind of a tool for education. Next slide, please. So for 2026, we're forecasting right now some of these other buckets of revenue. A pretty noticeable one is our marijuana tax. We don't know how much we've collected for the prior year until the year after. So we've kept that number flat at 2.1 million. We know that realizing the data that we received from the state from 2020 or back all the way through 2022, that the numbers appear to be kind of plateauing a little bit. So we wanted to keep that number flat, and then we will be able to adjust based on the numbers that we receive in March 2026 for 2025. So we'll be able to address that going forward for hopefully 2027. So 2.1 million there. We also investment income, we're bumping that up by 700,000 to ensure that we have smart growth and remain cautious and stable to 3.5 million. So we have that numbers. State revenue sharing, we have an asterisk by that because we know that the state is still deciding on how they will budget for the entire state, which includes state revenue sharing. The House, the Senate, and the governor all have different revenue sharing numbers. So we plug this in there with an asterisk, just kind of letting you know that the number may change and we'll have to adjust as we move closer to approving our final budget. And then the convention facility and alcohol tax, which supports a lot of the HCS programs. Some of that funding is also directed towards SWIMBA. We are realizing a decrease of the state's projecting a decrease of $87,000. So it's about $1.8 million that we'll receive from the state on that. Next slide, please. All right. So this is the law enforcement fund, a very short slide. As you see that right now we have a $721,600 balance available for new funding. So that's all forecasted based on our similar to property taxes. It's the same thing. So we forecast that. We do have a decent sized fund balance within that fund of 718,000, and that was due to essentially some mishaps between the general fund and law enforcement fund and transfers. So when positions were approved in 2024, they were paid for out of the general fund, but then the transfer never happened to pick that up from the law enforcement fund. So we were paying for law enforcement positions out of the general fund and did not ever take the transfer. So we caught that moving forward. But in either regard, it built up a fund balance within that fund. Typically, this fund really remains at $0. Everything that comes in is goes out to public safety. So the courts, animal services, sheriff's office, and OPA. So there is a fund balance there that will get addressed through new funding requests, and then we'll look to spend that all down as well. Next slide, please. So any questions on revenues?
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned some plateauing. I know a couple of Gage and Cookies were closing statewide. Is that going to impact us with the recent closing around Kalamazoo County? And do we know how much it'll impact?
No, that's a great question. So, I mean, the state does have very good data on marijuana in general. We did not take that deep of a dive. I would imagine that because that shop is closing, that their business would just merely transfer over to a different an existing business in the county. So I'm not too concerned with that, but we could drill down that deep, and that's why we kept the number flat. We know that some of these companies are closing, but we also realize that their business will just simply shift to another competitor in the area that's already here. So.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. The convention and first, the convention and facility alcohol tax, the state is projecting a decrease in revenue from that fund. Is it based on a change in funding percentage, or is it just people are buying less alcohol?
That's a great question, Vice Chair. I will have to do some research on that. We just get the treasury report and then we plug in the number, but we can look into that for sure.
Okay, thanks. And then the investment report, we talked earlier, and you'd said something that the actuals for investments are 5.2, and I know we don't want to budget that full amount. But are we going to budget like a higher amount as far as the investments? If we do the actual, then we can do something for capital improvement for a higher amount.
Yes, Vice Chair. So what we intended to communicate through here is that we wanted to present a number that addressed the smart growth strategy, but that we will present a number that is higher. So we're looking at about 5 million. So that 3.5 million would go towards operational expenses. The 1.5 million up to 1.5 million would be earmarked for capital improvements. So the 401(470) funds, so capital improvements and municipal building funds.
Okay, thank you. And then kind of the marijuana cannabis tax question. I think most people are getting pretty close to flat. I think they're budgeting like a 1 or 2% increase, nothing substantial. But yeah, it's based on the state sales. So if your stores close like locally, they base it all on the state sales. I mean, if you're a participating municipality, then you're opted into that funding formula. But if we look, and I guess if we get 1 or 2% short at, we're $50,000 or $60,000 short, I have no problem putting a 2% increase on the marijuana tax for anticipated revenues to make that whole, because I think you're going to see a tiny increase, not much, but 2% probably.
Thank you. So I just have questions on the state revenue sharing projection. So there's a lot of unknowns, but weighing out the three budget proposals that have been brought forward by the House, Senate, and the governor, the amount that we are plugging in at this point, is that in alignment with like the worst case scenario for revenues among the proposals, or where does it line up with what's debated currently?
That's a great question, Chair. My understanding is that we used a number that is sort of in the middle. That's usually how it works out. So all three chambers kind of come up with a number, and they're all different, but they usually meet in the middle somewhere. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken because historically that's where they've landed. But we know it'll fluctuate, it'll shift depending on how depending on when the budget is approved.
Thank you. And then one more on the marijuana revenue. Isn't the formula based in part on the number of local licenses?
For townships and cities, yes,
Okay.
not for counties.
I recall that from my township days, so thank you for clarifying that. All right, any other questions on revenues? Vice Chair Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chair. Real quick, on our real property, that's pretty much fixed based on our information from our that we got earlier on our equalization and stuff, but so that's pretty solid, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. So Finance Director Post met with an outside CPA firm, Maynard Coscarin, and they verified that that number is very solid. It's closer to the margin than we've ever budgeted in the past, actually. So it's pretty accurate this time around.
Yeah, I saw that and I thought, man, that's really close. I think it's closer than we've ever been. So appreciate that. It just kind of hit me as okay.
All right, thank you for the questions and feel free. We have natural pauses throughout, so we appreciate the questions and we'll conduct follow-up when we need to. Next slide, please, Dina. So where does this leave us? So we know that our general fund with revenue and expenditures, this leaves us with a surplus to address new funding requests of approximately $2 million. The law enforcement fund with that fund balance that they have leaves us with around $1.4 million, so 721,000 available to address new funding requests ongoing and support those ongoing new funding requests, but they have a fund balance built up of 718,000 that will leverage to address there are new funding requests that are some capital and things like that, so some of these one-time requests that we can support. So that leaves us with a total balance for 2026 of 3.4 million. So that's kind of where we are there. So what you'll see in the administrator's recommendation is this number, and we will, essentially describe where what new funding requests we've addressed through this budget process, utilizing that projected surplus within the budget. Next slide, please, Dina. So we wanted to talk about the golden ratio, and I know we talk about this a lot, so we really know how this works, but this is the pie chart that sort of delineates how we handle unanticipated, unallocated revenues. So 30% goes to capital, 30% goes to board priorities of your desire, and then the other 20% goes to large capital and then the fleet needs. So with respect, I've already talked about that. So let's see. So yeah, I think next slide, please. So managing fund balance. So our fund balance policy calls for maintaining a 20 to 25% revenues in reserve. So with projected revenues approaching 95 million and some change, that range would be 19 to 23 million as of the December 31st, 2024 audit. And so as we closed out 2024, we had projected an unassigned fund balance of nearly $30 million. So keeping us in within compliance and providing resiliency for the future. And as you can see there, utilizing that $29 million number, 20% of the fund balance remaining would be $10 million. We would highly recommend a cautious approach considering the looming federal cuts and even state budget cuts of sticking with the 25% of the balance remaining, which would be $6 million. So the next couple of slides will kind of describe some of that and how we envision that money being earmarked. Next slide, please. So golden ratio. So obviously when I talked about the 20%, 30%, 30%. So fleet, large capital, and then building or board priorities rather. That $6 million number that I recommended going with, you would see that 1.2 would be earmarked to fleet, 20%, which would be 1.2 again, 1.2 million to large capital, 30% for capital. So that'd be so large capital is the municipal building fund, that's 470. Capital is 401. And so 1.9 million to routine capital, and then 1.9 million to the board's priorities as you all desire to address issues within the community. And so that's what that all comes out to be. Next slide, please. As you consider sort of these balances that are remaining, we recognize that we have significant commitments ahead, ranging from household hazardous waste facilities to our transitional housing shelter, so homelessness initiatives, planning for court remodels, our jail facilities, and addressing retiree benefit obligations. And each of these really have implications on how we move forward in future in this budget, 2026 and beyond, so that we ensure that our long-term financial picture remains sound. There were questions, and in your we placed some handouts in there. We haven't attached the actual handouts in Civic Clerk yet, but they have addressed a lot of the questions that were raised within the budget retreat. So there are fund balance reports in there. We have an OPEB report in there because that was a major question from even our last board meeting. But just as a reminder, just all of these considerations that we have and commitments that we have right now that will shape how we address future budgets as we move forward. Next slide, please. These are just a reminder to the board and the public. So our overarching priority for the board's budget in moving forward is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then specifically targeting public safety, employees, and then community stability. Next slide, please. Just our strategic plan goals. So as we were and as we are going through the budget and formulating a administrator's recommendation, in alignment with the strategic plan, we're trying to address goals 3, 4, 6, and 7. And so just a reminder about that. And next slide, please, Dina. That might be the, all right, yeah. So what I wanted to talk about was just a couple of things, and it's not necessarily on the slide, but this is our closing slide. So I wanted to highlight some of the long-term challenges that are ahead. So we know OPEB, which are other post-employment benefits, those continue to rise. And as a reminder to the board, and even for OPEB, but even active employees, we're self-insured. So that means that while we maintain an insurance broker, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, so we pay insurance premiums. We also pay all of the claims. And so if you have a healthy workforce, your claims are typically lower. Ours are, I would say, probably moderate. We're like somewhere in the middle. But if you have an unhealthy workforce, our claims skyrocket, and that has implications on the budget. The rule of 80, really identified that 1/3 of our employees are eligible for retirement. 1/3 have not retired. However, of that 1/3, a significant portion, probably 95%, are eligible for retiree health care. And so we wanted to point that out too. They're entitled to that under the legacy system. And so as you're aware, senior healthcare, right, often brings higher costs than healthcare related to active employees, with obviously some exceptions to that. So additionally, on that previous slide, we talked about retiree wage adjustments for those that are currently in the system. We just received back those valuations, so we'll get those disseminated to the board as we move forward. They're very costly, and if approved, will also have implications on the budget moving forward. All of those benefits are paid out of Fund 610, the Employee Benefits Fund. So, and that's funded through the general fund through the fringe rate. And so, again, as we continue to consider these enhancements, we will also need to consider necessary adjustments to the fringe rate as we move forward. It'll have implications on affording these items. So I think that it just underscores really, right, our why our ongoing vigilance and benefits management is really so critical in how we move forward in budget discussions now and in the future. So again, management principles, we look at smart growth, we look at investing versus spending. So how are we investing in our facilities? How are we investing in employees, even our retirees, versus just spending money? And then a cautious approach designed to ensure that we maintain employment of employees and the services that we have at a serviceable rate. Next slide, please. And that's all I have for you this evening. I am anticipating that we will have an administrator's recommendation based on some additional discussion tonight. Hopefully, well, certainly by September 16th and or earlier. So we're working really hard to drive that home. Within that, and I forgot to point out, within the surplus number, we've already baked in the community grants funding. So that $400,000 funding, that $2 million does not need to address the $400,000 community grants program. That's already baked into the budget. That's already done. So that's funding that we can leverage to address new funding requests and beyond. So happy to take any questions on the information and the material that I just presented. I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator. I appreciate the analysis and the supporting materials provided to the commission. I'll open it up for questions. Commissioner Gisler.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, I really appreciate the handouts. I know I'm a dinosaur when it comes to working on paper, but I always like to have it to help coax me along. And I salute you for pulling together where we stand now into, I don't know, was it 20 pages? It's pretty neat. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm looking for the balance of all the fund balances. Was that in? I don't think it's in here. I tried to just. Oh, it's in here. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Okay, thank you. And then the OPEB obligations that we have, I agree that that's going to be a at least in the short and medium term future, it's going to be a substantial obligation. Do we know what percentage of our current employees are receiving or participate in that legacy? I think we stopped it in 2010, correct?
Yes, that's a great question, Vice Chair. I believe that I thought it was 2014. It could have been 2010,
It
but
could be 20.
but yeah, we will check on that and we can get that information. I don't know offhand, so we can gather it.
Just eventually that, since we got rid of it in 14, eventually that obligation is going to go away. I mean, as you know, 20 or 30 or 40 years down the road, there won't be anybody receiving that benefit anymore. But I just don't know when it plateaus and when it starts to decrease, or that'd probably be an actuarial question. But okay, thank you.
All right, I'm seeing no further questions at this time.
Well, well, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Chair and Vice Chair Pro Tem commissioners. There's a lot of work that, believe it or not, that did go into this presentation. So I do want to thank the finance team through the leadership of Director Post, the Deputy County Administrators, our management analyst Ezekiel, who pulled together a ton of this information as well. And then, of course, you know, our Chief of Staff Dina and Administrative Coordinator Monique. Just a lot of work went into this and goes into the budget. It's just a ton of time, and I was on vacation last week, and so I got to give them the credit. They put together this presentation. I'm presenting it, so just want to thank them wholeheartedly and appreciate your time tonight. We will plan to deliver an administrator's recommended budget here in the near future, so look forward for that, and we'll keep the discussion moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator. All right. With that, we're going to move forward to item 7. We have a review of the responsible bidder policy. I'd like to open it up to Deputy Administrator Cole, if you'd like to come and discuss the bidder policy with us. Oh, my apologies. You want me to start with council? Thank you so much. Sorry, Deputy Administrator. We discussed both earlier, Administrator. So welcome, Corporation Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this opportunity to address the body on the responsible billers policy. Purchasing Director Barbosa is passing out a presentation which she will present as we go through the changes and the suggested amendments to the responsible billers policy. This matter was brought to Corporation Counsel's attention last August by Chair Strebs, and we do apologize for the delay in this matter. One of the things is that I am not a purchasing specialist, which I learned, but they were working with Purchasing Director Barbosa. We were able to finally bring a proposed policy to you, which we will believe will benefit and achieve the aims and goals of this body. As Madam Director comes forward for the presentation, I'd just like to say thank you to Ryan Post, Finance Director, for bringing Barbosa to the county. She is phenomenal, which you will see for yourself. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome, Director Barbosa.
Thank you very much again. Lou, thank you, and grateful to the ad hoc committee and the building authority who have worked diligently for months. I just came in towards the end to wrap it up with a bow. This really strengthens our construction procurement policies. The goal has been to make sure that every project delivers the greatest value to our taxpayers and supports our local workforce and is carried out with transparency and fairness. Terms that you're going to hear frequently throughout this presentation, so bear with me. So I aim to present with you the key updates to this policy. That is the request for proposal evaluation policy, the tools we've developed to support it, the standard RFP template, as well as the scoring matrix we created. These updates are not just administrative changes, they're about creating consistency and safeguarding our public's funds, building stronger trust with both our vendors and of course the community we serve. Alrighty, next slide please. Let's dive into. Alrighty. So the amended policy now clearly applies to only projects valued at $100,000 or greater and distinguishes clearly between construction and non-construction projects, which I believe was an issue in the past. And we've now introduced a scoring matrix to ensure consistent and best value awards. The new, next slide please. The new policy clearly defines the evaluation criteria used to score all requests for proposals, as well as the submittal requirements that provide vendors with a roadmap on how to maximize their score for their evaluation. In short, submittal requirements are what vendors are required to turn in, and the evaluation criteria will tell them how it's scored. Next slide, please. And these are the general RFP evaluation criteria, so this applies to all non-construction projects. Construction projects will have 3 additional criteria that we'll talk about at a later slide. So for completeness, we're asking, did they follow the instructions and did they submit everything? For experience, have they done similar projects in the past? Do they have the right personnel for the project? For capacity, do they have the financial and operational strength and resources to deliver their project? Legal standing, are they licensed in good standing and free of major legal issues? For approach, do they understand the project and provide us with a solid plan? And compliance, do they take exception to our statement of work, insurance, or legal requirements? Next slide, please. And to clarify, we completely separated the construction contractor evaluation criteria and submittal requirements into its own section, section 13.6 now. And like I said, it has 3 additional criteria: safety, where we can track their safety record; workforce and equity, do they support diversity, equity, fairness, and workforce development? And finally, local impact, do they contribute locally and or engage with the community? Next slide, please. So those are the three highlighted there. That is the weight that we have assigned in our committees. We still provide with flexibility where the departments are able to change the weights except for the last three. Those remain firm. Of course, our construction criteria. So the scoring matrix is basically a grading chart. It takes the evaluation criteria that we've created and assigns a weight percentage, and that our subject matter experts and our key stakeholders who will form an evaluation committee score these proposals against these standards. Again, ensuring fairness, transparency, and consistency in contractor selection. I really want to thank you, Chair Stubbs, for your leadership and push for this matrix. Your super detailed research and advocacy were instrumental in shaping this matrix into the fair and balanced tool we see today. Vice Chair Taylor also strongly championed and made sure that we kept our eyes on our mission of supporting our local small business participation front and center as we work diligently to refine the submittal requirements and evaluation criteria. And additionally, I want to thank the Building Authority for their emphasis on labor safety and work environments that support worker well-being and growth. So, and you'll see these goals directly reflect in the matrix, especially in the assigned weights you see. Next slide, please. So scoring matrix are just a universally adopted best practice throughout the USA and Canada. Scoring matrices make all procurement processes fair, legally defensible, transparent, and ensure we get the best value by staying fully compliant with best practices and procurement laws and regulations. Next slide, please.